Coatlicue is a basalt sculpture created around 1500 by the Mexica Tenochca, also known as Aztecs, from the Central Valley of Mexico. It stands over 10 feet tall and is currently on display in the National Museum of Anthropology and History in Mexico City. Coatlicue comes from two Nahuatl words, coat, which means snake, and cueit, meaning skirt. Altogether, Coatlicue means her skirt made of snakes. She is misinterpreted as the mother of the gods, or as the earth goddess, and is attributed to fertility and human sacrifice. For almost half a millennium, knowledge of Mesoamerican culture has been misinterpreted, as many historians and anthropologists have generated many myths about ancient Mexico based on the documentation created by the Spanish priest of the 16th century. Unfortunately, this documentation has been accepted as the official history of Mexico. For many years, the research that was done to inquire about Nahua philosophy has been from outsiders, people outside of the indigenous tradition, which has reinforced the negative representation given by the Spanish chronicles. It has been only in recent times that people within the Nahua tradition have begun to share the traditional knowledge that was kept secret because of extreme persecution and discrimination by the colonial religious and government authorities. Attempting to interpret Coatlicue, a Mesoamerican monolith, cannot be done solely using the official history, but must also integrate the Nahua oral tradition from which the actual knowledge of its symbolism resides. When the Spanish arrived in 1519 to present-day Mexico City, they found Tenochtitlan, an enormous city with incredible architecture, which is a man-made island that was built in the middle of Lake Texcoco. It was the political and educational center for the Tenochca of the 14th and 15th century, a people that had developed complex societal structures based on astronomy, science, and mathematics. The Nahuas of central Mexico differed from many other native nations in that their focus was the attainment of knowledge, and they had evolved the sophisticated disciplines and sciences that had their origin in the Toltec civilization of thousands of years prior to the establishment of Mexico Tenochtitlan. The art and symbolism of Nahua cultures are related to the documentation of knowledge, and every artwork had a specific purpose and was an expression of a scientific concept. Contrary to popular belief, the ancient Mexicans did not have deities, since all which have been misinterpreted as gods and goddesses are scientific concepts related to universal forces or natural forces and their influence on the earth and human beings. The artistic representation and symbolism in our culture, as we see in the Coatlicue sculpture, are meant to be information related to scientific concepts and mathematical equations. After the Spanish invasion of 1519, many sculptures and books of knowledge were destroyed and deemed demonic by the Catholic religious authorities. It was only until 1790 that the Coatlicue sculpture was found in the main plaza of Mexico City as they were constructing buildings in the area. The Spanish, after seeing that many indigenous people will go and adorn the sculpture with flowers and candles, decided to bury it, fearing that if destroyed it would bring bad luck. In 1803, Alexander von Humboldt, a Prussian geographer and explorer, curious to study the sculpture, unburies it and creates drawings of the details, and then the Spanish priest once again bury it the same day. 20 years later, it was undug again by William Bullock, and a cast was made that served as part of an exhibit in London. It was only when, by order of the Viceroy of Bucareli, the sculptures of Coatlicue and the Sunstone were placed in the Royal University of Mexico, forming the core of the collection that will become the National Museum of Anthropology, where the items currently reside. Coatlicue stands at 11 feet 6 inches tall and is an astounding artwork that showcases the mastery of stone sculpture in Nahua tradition. The freestanding sculpture shows a figure with arms bent as if to pounce forward, wearing a skirt made of snakes. We can see that there is a tactile texture all around the sculpture, specifically the pattern on the snakes, similar to cross-hatching. We also see that there is an inventive texture pattern on the snakes that represents jade and turquoise in Nahua symbolism. The sculpture has large volume and mass and is symmetrical all around. The sculpture had very defined lines that help separate the different parts of the figure. Cross-contour lines mark important edges. We see the implied lines where the snakes are interlaced, and we can make them out on the other side. There is no color left in the sculpture, but originally it would have been painted with many different colors that symbolize many things in the artwork. There are two heads of snakes, replacing where the head of the figure would be, as if it were to be a human being. The two snakes that create the head of the sculpture come together to make one single forward-facing snake. The figure is wearing a necklace made with an alternating rhythm of hearts, hands, and skulls. There is a radial emphasis that focuses on the skull in the center outwards. The feet are replaced by eagle claws, or what could be fangs of a crocodile. The figure also shows the upper torso uncovered, revealing breast and row in the abdomen that signal her as being a mother. Coatlicue wears a belt made of snakes, and on the other side of the sculpture, opposite of the one with breast, the figure wears a loin cloth, also known as mashlat, which is a male attire, also connoting a masculine quality. This male attire is often overlooked and has not been identified by many historians and anthropologists that have studied the sculpture. The interpretation of the sculpture is the interpretation of its symbols. The most important symbol is the snake. The snake is one of the most used symbols of antiquity. The snake represents vibration. Different snakes with different colors and form represent the different undulating vibrations that emanate from all forms of existence in the universe. As Master Izayotilmahtzin from the Nahua tradition explains, that heat, light, sound, and everything else is vibrating together with the celestial movements. In the same way, each living being emanates light and heat by means of the forces that nourish and generate within each cell and particle. In other words, everything around us is covered in vibrations, or snakes if you will, and these vibrations are represented as snakes in ancient Mexican symbolism. It is through the knowledge of vibration and energy that the Mexican calendar system, the most accurate calendar system created to date, is synchronized with the cycles of the earth and the universe. Also, the misnamed temples or pyramids, which are correctly called teocalis, are energetic structures that are astronomically aligned and are emanating specific vibrations that serve for the purpose of study, experimentation, and places for rituals that may be dedicated to the work of transforming energy and activating parts of the human being. Contrary to the colonial Western Judeo-Christian perspective, where the snake is a symbol of the devil and evil, which once again helped to generate the misinterpretation of these symbols, it would have been impossible to explain these vibrations to a Catholic priest of the 16th century without being accused of witchcraft. Now moving on to the skirt of snakes. When the symbol of the snake gets combined with the symbol of the skirt, it is describing that which is covering something as a skirt, which is made of snakes, or vibrations. The skirt is used as a symbol for female qualities. Coatlicue, in other words, is a skirt that covers the earth with vibrations. It is essentially describing the electromagnetic field of the earth. This electromagnetic field is what protects the earth from charged particles from the sun and other cosmic rays that will damage the upper atmosphere, which includes the ozone layer that protects the earth from harmful ultraviolet radiation. In other words, it is like a radiation filter from the cosmic rays that helps to protect and transform the received radiation, which in turn influence the cycles of Earth. Since this filter helps to shelter the Earth and converts the energy so that it can nurture all of existence, it can be viewed as a feminine quality, or a mother. Below her skirt at the feet, we can see that the Coatlicue has claws of an eagle instead of human feet. The eagle, due to its characteristics for being one of the birds that flies the highest, in Nahua tradition it symbolizes strength and heat. It is a symbol for the action of the summer sun. The eagle is also the symbol used to describe the universal force of repulsion, which separates the particles in an atom, allowing for matter and antimatter to maintain order, form, and proportion. All of these qualities may refer to the intensity of the electromagnetic field and its repulsion from the dangerous radiations of the sun. Under the Coatlicue sculpture, there is a symbol of Coatlicue, mistakenly categorized as one of the 4 earth gods. We see a figure in a squatting position with arms extended upwards as if it were to be carrying something. Coatlicue is the male representation of the earth itself. It is the outer layers that include minerals and mountains. It is what is carrying life on top of the surface of the earth. It is important to mention that according to the Nahua tradition, every concept has its duality. In other words, the earth has a male and a female quality, and is like a mother and a father. The reason that the earth is depicted in the bottom is because it is referencing that the electromagnetic field is coming from the earth outwards. Moving upward, Coatlicue is wearing a necklace that has been misconceived as to symbolize human sacrifice and destruction. In this symbolic language, nothing is to be taken literal, since every image is used as a symbol that may signify broader concepts. The hands are symbolizing action, the hearts are symbolizing creativity, and the skulls are symbolizing rest and reflection. This pattern is referring to the hours of the day. In the ancient Mexican calendar system, a day is divided into 20 hours, with a pattern that indicates moments of creativity, action, and rest. Every hour has a vibration that is expressing something specific, and these are regulating phases of interaction with the cycles of nature and the earth. This necklace is symbolically adorning the nurturing mother. In other words, it is representing the phases of activity and rest on earth, and is being regulated by the influence of the electromagnetic field. The skull is another important symbol in ancient Mexican symbolism. Contrary to the notion of death in Christianity, death in the ancient Mexican philosophical system understands that the internal and external cycles of existence are always generated by the duality of life and death. That is, nothing comes to life without this having been generated by a previous death and transmutation. Applied to the moment of rest in the day, it is the point where we reflect, meditate, and organize our thoughts, and through introspection we come to understand the experiences we have previously lived. Moving on to the top of the sculpture, we see the head of 2 snakes. According to Master Mesa, researcher, author, and master from the Nahua tradition, the 2 enormous serpents that unite their heads and profile symbolize the concept of duality. This concept in Nahua is known as Ometeot. It comes from 2 words, Ome meaning 2 and Teot meaning active generating principle. In other words, Ometeot is that which is being generated by 2 forces. It is the generating principle of duality, a principle that explains the cyclical creative process of everything. It is the mother and father of all creation. Master Mesa describes it as the union of the opposing forces that in eternal equilibrium sustain the universe, female and male, woman and man. In the philosophy of the Coatlicue, the essence of all matter is of a dual nature. Ometeot is the product of the union between opposite but complementary forces that give form, substance, and vibration to the totality of existence. In the Coatlicue sculpture, Ometeot is represented by the 2 snakes that create one head of the sculpture, which come together to make one single forward-facing snake head. The female bust, which we see, which represents the feminine quality of the earth, is being surrounded by snakes, or vibrations. First, by the skirt of snakes underneath, the 2 snakes on the sides, and the 2 snakes on top, symbolizing that the electromagnetic field completely surrounding and protects the earth. Adapting the 2 forces, the Coatlicue sculpture wears a skirt of snakes representing the feminine essence on one side, and wears the male attire of a pendant mashlat, the symbol of man, on the other. Coatlicue is representing the opposite polarities in the union and balance of the forces of nature and the universe, both male and female. This may be one of the few sculptures of all antiquity to denote a dual being, or rather, the equilibrium of both genders. As part of my artwork, I decided to fill the Coatlicue sculpture with the appropriate colors according to its symbolism. hoping to bring the sculpture a sense of vitality, reminding us of the beauty of ancient Mexican culture and art.